It is April the 23rd, 2026. The bond market, as I've mentioned, is going to collapse. The financial system's going to collapse and the currency is going to collapse. Once this happens, and let's just assume this happens dramatically, they say you're 9 meals away from anarchy, which is 3 days. So people are going to be faced with a lot of problems in this situation. There's going to be a lot of panic. People are going to stop showing up to work. Grid's going to start to fail. Utilities are going to start to fail. Water, sewage, trash. A lot of things that people have taken for granted are going to fail. A lot of the people call themselves ANCAPs seem to think that they're just going to be self-sufficient and they're going to manage without any of what the government does. But the government, even though it does a lot of horrible stuff and it's extraordinarily inefficient, it does provide some services that are critical for a functioning economy. And I don't support taxation. I don't believe that these things need to be funded with tax, but I do believe they need to be funded. The most obvious example is the anti-trespassing mandate, because in the power vacuum, if government just goes away, it has been shown that warlords will start to take over territory. People are going to be desperate. They're going to get violent, and there's going to be a lot more desperate, violent people than there are going to be people who were in any way prepared for this physically. Most of these preppers are just one-man shows on a property. Maybe they got a few people there, a little community, but they're going to just be vastly outnumbered by these hordes of desperate, starving people, and by these armies that are going to form as opportunists, become warlords and start to try to control territory. They're going to start extorting people who are earning some kind of income. If you're a farmer, they're going to come and they're going to start extorting you, just like the government did, and they're going to outmatch you just as much as the government did with their army. They're going to control bridges and critical roadways, and they're going to charge tolls to get through, and then they're going to fight with each other, and it's going to be a violent and awful world, and it's going to be very hard for anyone to stay out of the way of them. But there are other things that need to be addressed too, because the electrical grid, for example, needs continuity. The trash collection, the irrigation system, the sewage system. This stuff's all going to start collapsing in this kind of scenario, because people aren't going to be safe to get to work. They're not going to have any money to work for. These businesses are going to be uncapitalized, and things are just going to start deteriorating. And then you're going to have other problems. things, things you're not even thinking about. You're going to have rats are going to start to infest cities, because all this sewage and all this spoiled food that's going to be everywhere is going to give them um, opportunities to nourish themselves and to breed. There's not going to be any animal control. There's going to be disease is going to be spreading. Mosquitoes are going to become a massive issue. Um, Disease is going to become a massive issue. Uh, and it's going to just be complete hell. And it's going to be very hard for anyone to survive, even if they did prepare on an individual level. So it doesn't have to be like that, because there can be continuity of these vital services if people realize that this is necessary. And it will be necessary once this collapse happens. So in my book, I talk about the steps that need to be taken to make this happen. The federal government, the most important thing that needs to happen is the American federal government needs to step out of the way, needs to legally go through the process it needs to take to abolish itself. And that's going to require amending the Constitution to nullify itself, which is going to require the majorities that it's going to require. And so there's going to need to be psychic changes going on. People are going to need to wake up, libertarians included, and they're going to need to realize that these are things that need to happen. Um, I got a plan to start something pretty cool, an exchange in the wake of this collapse, that can, I believe, become a bridge to a new economy, to regrow, where there will be a market where people can show up, where they can exchange the products that they have, the skills that they have, and businesses can be capitalized, assets can move around, and survival in a real sense can happen. So I'm hoping to do all that, but getting the government out of the way is the biggest thing. And really, I'm in my book, I propose that every tax funded government should do the same thing. But you got to get that federal piece, because some states are going to be wiser than others, I expect. And once you get that federal level taken care of, now at least some states, some municipalities within those states can start doing the right things, so that an economy can be regrown. So it's just something I was thinking about. I think a lot of preppers just really underestimate what they're going to be up against in the wake of this. Um, it's not enough to have a homestead with crops, um, and supplies you've stored up and guns that you and maybe your brothers and your close friends can man, because you're going to be facing armies, that are going to seek you out, and they're going to figure out where you are. They're going to figure out who's surviving. You show up to markets, they're going to follow you home, and you're just going to be outmatched. Yeah, we need um, real security, because this is the jungle ultimately, and in the jungle, the strongest um, wins, the physically strongest, and that ain't gonna be some guy on a homestead with an AR. That's gonna be some warlord with an army of hundreds or thousands of people at their command, um, that controls significant territory with significant income producing assets that allow them to replenish that army and to feed them and keep them loyal. So, yeah, yeah, they're gonna kick people's ass, if we don't do the right things. And at some point, I'm hoping some people figure this out and at least take a look at my book, so that we can have a chance, man.